Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar all about best practice on continually improving your sustainability strategy. Let me just get back to my slides. Apologies, I just clicked on the wrong thing there. There we go. My name is Hattie. I am a sustainability consultant at Action Sustainability, which, for those of you that don't know, is essentially the parent company of the Supply Chain Sustainability School. So you can see I've got the Supply Chain Sustainability School background. We're essentially the same company, but we're a team of sustainability consultants in all areas of sustainability, actually. And we feed in all of our expertise and knowledge into all of the free resources that you can access on the Supply Chain Sustainability School, including resources on sustainability strategy. So my background is in net zero carbon and sustainability strategy. So I head up our strategy services at Action Sustainability. So it's great to be talking to you all today, all about sustainability strategy, how we can continually improve our strategy once we've developed it. So this is what we're going to be covering in the next just under an hour, what a strategy is, how we can develop our strategies to be best practice and to be relevant, how we can deliver against our strategy, and then also just generally best practice and lessons learned for continually improving sustainability strategies as well. As I've already said, this session is being recorded, so don't worry if you join in a bit late or if you miss anything, we'll send that in a follow-up email. We will also send the slides in a follow-up email, and a feedback form link as well. And we'll also be sending a link at the end of the session for you to book in a call with me as well if you want any further support, if you have any further questions as well. So look out for all of those things. You'll basically be sent all the information you need in a follow-up email. So don't worry about that. I'm just going to start off giving a little bit of an introduction to sustainability. This is an intermediate level session, so this session is more aimed at those who already have a sustainability strategy in place and have a working knowledge of sustainability. If you feel like you're more at that beginner level, you might find our beginner level session, developing and delivering a tailored sustainability strategy, more relevant or more helpful. We also have resources. We have an introduction to sustainability strategy video on the Supply Chain Sustainability School, so do go check that out. But I thought I would do a brief introduction to what sustainability is and what this means in relation to a strategy, because actually I find even if we do know these things, it can be helpful to kind of refresh ourselves and almost like ground ourselves again in what we're doing and why we're doing it and what it all means. So sustainability is often split into three themes: the environment, society, and the economy. Sometimes these are described as people, planet, profit. Sometimes they're actually referred to as a triple bottom line in business. So of course, environmental considerations relate to our impact on nature, things like pollution, use of energy, carbon emissions, use of materials and waste, water, and biodiversity. We also then have those social or societal considerations, which concern human elements like community, culture, equality, access to fair employment and training, and health as well. And then economic considerations are, of course, related to an organization's long term financial sustainability, things such as ethical business practices, stakeholder relationships, governance, and transparency. It's all about generating wealth and economic stability without impacting the environment. And of course, all three are dependent on each other. They're all equally important to consider. So when we're developing our strategies, when we're improving our strategies, it's important to think about how best to balance these considerations, meeting that sustainable sweet spot in the center. So, simply, if we're talking about sustainability more widely, it means we must balance environmental, economic, and social impacts in a way that doesn't impact future generations being able to meet their own needs. And that's in alignment with the kind of official or first definition of sustainability that came out in the Brundtland Report in 1987, I think, defining sustainability as a way of kind of making sure that future generations can meet their own needs as well. I also just wanted to mention the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So these are a set of 17 interlinked goals intended to be achieved by 2030 that cover a broad range of sustainability issues applicable to any organisation of any size. And these are typically used as a framework for organisations to structure their sustainability strategy. This is because the goals cover all three pillars, they're universal, so they're easily recognized and understood. So again, these can be a way of continually improving your strategy. We'll talk more about that, of course, but making sure that you are aligned with as many of these as possible, and just so we're all aware what these are, when we're thinking about sustainability strategies, and how those two things, sustainability and a strategy, interlink. And just a reminder of the benefits of a strategy, why we're here, why we've developed our strategy. Obviously, these benefits or these drivers are going to be different for every organization. And I'd recommend that's part of your developing a strategy phase, is working out what is driving you, why you have a strategy. And also as part of your reviewing your strategy, is reminding yourself of what your drivers are. So feel free to actually take this moment to think, oh, okay, on this screen here, what are the main things that are driving us at the moment to continually improve our strategy? What things drove us um, to originally produce a sustainability strategy? Is it because you wanted to have that competitive edge? Is it because you knew that it would lead to efficiency and it would lead to saving costs? Is it attracting and retaining talent? Is it saving time? Is it work winning? Is it because your clients were requesting information regarding a sustainability strategy more and more? So do you have a think, maybe a bit of a reflection on what is driving your sustainability strategy and what is driving you to continually improve it as well? And final part of this kind of introduction, before I get more into the continually improving part, is actually what a sustainability strategy is. Again, a bit of a refresher, a reminder, and also a reminder to make sure that we are all aligned on terminology, and that everyone, or all of our stakeholders actually know what we mean when we're talking about our sustainability strategy. So essentially, when we talk about sustainability strategy, we mean a document that outlines your organization's plan of action to achieve your sustainability mission and objectives. So what that means simply is, what are your sustainability impacts and how are you managing them? So specifically, who's managing them, what's your time frame for managing them, um, and making sure that this is all tailored to your organization, making sure that your strategy is very much kind of bespoke to your organization. And I just wanted to make clear using this diagram that um, you might have a sustainability strategy, and then you might have other strategies that fall underneath it, or you might have seen this in other organizations. And so, just to make the point that when we're talking about sustainability strategy, we're talking about this overall sustainability strategy. And then you might have more detailed strategies, such as a carbon strategy or a sustainable procurement strategy, that sit underneath it as well. So we'd recommend that these kind of stay separate, and you have your overarching strategy, and then you might have the kind of more detailed specific strategies that sit underneath that as well. I also just realized that I forgot to say, please do ask questions as we go. The Q&A box is there. You can also use the chat as well. Just make sure that if you do use the chat, you select to everyone, just so everyone can see it. You can also just directly message me, but do ask questions throughout, and there'll be some time for questions at the end as well. So if you're unsure or anything, use this time to learn as much as you can, and feel free to ask any questions. So when we're talking about sustainability strategy, obviously we've defined it. Typically, they are a long-term framework, often up to 2050, sometimes 2040, 2045. Um, and so some detail with your strategy can only come in time once you have more information, or once you've achieved the previous target. So it's really important to update the detail, and ensure that uh, as years go by, you're still developing a framework that is good and is relevant. And so I'd say that is a key reason why your strategy needs reviewing and updating. But there are also a whole host of other reasons. Compliance, new legislation is coming into play all the time. We need to make sure that we're adapting to reduce our risk. Obviously, interest, investors are becoming more and more switched on sustainability. Change, like, it's a very quickly, fastly changing industry, business impact processes change. It might be that there are different weightings with bids and tenders, which we need to adapt to. I mentioned in our drivers there that clients might be driving or requesting sustainability strategies more and more. Um, and it also just might be, yeah, linked to your culture. Maybe internally you have people pushing for a different direction with regards to your strategy. Maybe people are saying, let's be more ambitious. Or, there might be that kind of internal pressure as well. So your strategy, there are many reasons why your strategy needs reviewing and updating. We can't just kind of produce it and then let it sit there. Collecting dust and say, right, job done. We need to make sure that it's relevant so that actually we can implement it and we can keep working on it. And it's something that is active and alive, and is kind of meeting all the various needs and drivers of that given moment. So let's go through this sustainability cycle, because once you have the foundations, you can then develop your strategy, and then you can work on continually improving. And performance measurement is such a key part of this, because you don't know how you're doing if you don't measure your performance. And then, of course, this can be a bit of a flow. So, your performance measurement and management can go back into your sustainability strategy, and it can also go back into um, reviewing your processes and training and education, as well. And it's so key that this is very much a golden thread, so that sustainability is aligned with your organization objectives right from the top and then throughout the business, through training and education, so that that engagement on the ground is achieved. So this golden thread really makes sure that your goals, your vision, and your values inform and are informed by your processes, your systems, and your people, as well. So this golden thread can be weaved all the way through to continually improving, as well. And you can see how this ends up being a little bit of a loop. And if you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't have that basic understanding of an introduction to sustainability, then, as I said, you can check out the Supply Chain Sustainability School on our sustainability strategy page. We have an introductory video, and also that would be maybe a great thing to send to people as you are improving your strategy. Say, we're reviewing our strategy, we're making sure it's up to date. This is what a strategy is and why it's important. And it can be quite useful to make sure that people know what a strategy is, and why you developed it in the first place. And then, of course, once you do that, you can create your sustainability strategy, which I'm sure a lot of you have already done. And then you can continually improve and review it as well. I recommend that you review your strategy every 1 to 2 years. And then you can move on to the performance measurement and management, which I'll come on to a bit later. But in terms of this developing your strategy and then continually improving, we use this, what we call strategy cycle. And this cycle can be used to actually initially develop your strategy. So in our developing a strategy webinar, this is a cycle that we go through. So you can use it to develop your strategy, but you can also use it to review your current one. And it's important that this is very much a cycle, so that you loop back in and around this cycle to continually update your strategy and make sure you're always doing best practice. So you can see the top line there is the developing piece, and then the bottom line there is more about the delivering, that continually improving piece as well. Um, and as I said, I'm sure a lot of you already have your strategy. So we're going to focus more about the kind of continually improving piece on the bottom here. So monitoring that implementation, measure, manage, and report performance, and continually improve as well. So these are some of the questions that we can start to ask ourselves about our sustainability strategy once we enter that kind of review period. As I said, it might be kind of every 1 to 2 years. Is our strategy still relevant? Do we need more detail? Have we included everything that we need to? Have we got relevant input from stakeholders? So, thinking about some best practice tips for your strategy, it's really important that you understand your impacts. And I'll be talking a bit more about double materiality and risk and opportunities in a bit. But it's really important that you know what it is you're doing, and what impact you can have on people and your environment as well. The second point there is avoiding tunnel vision. This, of course, links in with the picture on the right. And often we have that carbon tunnel vision. It might be something else if there's a more kind of pertinent issue or impact that's relevant to your business, but often it is carbon. And of course, carbon's really important, but we shouldn't have a sustainability strategy that focuses solely on carbon. We want to be thinking holistically about all three pillars about sustainability. And you'll remember from that diagram, you might have a carbon strategy that sits underneath your overall sustainability strategy, but that's how it should be. It should be separate. It shouldn't just be that your sustainability strategy is mainly carbon. And I do see some strategies that are kind of called like environmental strategies, or businesses have it as environmental reports. And it's not saying that that isn't good and valid and you shouldn't be focusing on environmental issues and carbon issues, but ideally you should address those kind of all three elements of sustainability. As I've mentioned, frameworks, so the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we want to be thinking about which frameworks we can be using to structure our strategy, and thinking about how our targets might link in with this. Um, and I think also in terms of competition, with more and more organizations reporting against things like the UN SDGs, it's worth thinking about, oh, is there a way that we can link that in, rather than just as a tick boxing thing, but actually thinking how we can integrate it into our targets. But also thinking about, other reporting frameworks. Do you have to comply with them? How are you providing that information? Do you have a process that collects that information, and kind of where you dedicate time to improve it as well? I'd recommend you set up SMART targets, so targets that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So balancing between being ambitious yet achievable. Some people, with regards to sustainability organizations, will change the A to being ambitious because, of course, we are in a sustainability or a climate crisis. So actually, how can we be as ambitious as possible, but also making sure that we have an idea of how we're going to reach our targets, that they're not just kind of plucked out of thin air, and that we've thought about our action plan and how we'll actually achieve it. So there's that balance there. Measuring your impact. So, are you measuring your impact appropriately? Of course, we live in a data driven world. How do you evidence you're actually delivering your strategy? And then setting up a reporting mechanism as well. So, we recommend you set up a mechanism, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or maybe you use a piece of software as well, so that you can really accurately report against your targets. Um, and then also, how can you lean on your top tier suppliers? Many suppliers will already be advanced sustainability potentially. How can you get them to share information and support your goals? And I'll be going into some of these in a bit more detail as we go through as well. First of all, I just want to say that identifying your stakeholders is so key to keeping your strategy relevant and up to date. So I'd recommend you do an exercise to remap kind of who your stakeholders are, and make sure that you're properly engaging with your stakeholders to find out what their needs are, and that you're not assuming that you know this. Because by finding out what they need of their supply chain or their customers, you're future proofing yourself better against any risks or shocks that might come up, out of the blue. And you can see some stakeholders on the screen here: clients, community, investors. We actually run client workshops for our own clients. So we might bring a selection of their clients into a workshop, and we'll ask them, what do you expect from your supply chain? And then we'll help our client update their strategy accordingly, because then we'll know a bit more about what's coming as well. And colleagues as well. We, of course, want a top down approach, but we have to balance this with a bottom up approach. So engaging people that are more kind of on the ground. They're doing a lot of the day to day stuff, and they'll have really, really valuable input. So, how do we balance that with really leadership from the top with regards to sustainability, but also making sure that we're really including everyone as part of the review and continual improvement process, because also in terms of engagement, people are much more likely to implement a strategy or be involved if they feel like and they are part of the process. So that might be a workshop and asking people, maybe using like an interactive tool so that people who don't generally or don't normally speak up still have that means to be able to have their say and to contribute in some way to the strategy as well. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide. If you're going to focus in on one slide, I appreciate I'm talking quite a lot, but this will be the slide because this will be around actually what your process should be, what we recommend for continually improving your strategy. And again, I recommend you use sort of every 1 to 2 years, um, and but work out actually kind of what is the best time frame for you. It might be that things don't change that much for your particular business in that period of time. Maybe it would make more sense to wait a little bit longer, but work out what's appropriate for you and make sure you kind of stick to that review time frame. So first of all, assess how you have currently performed against your strategy. So think about the data you're collecting and what you're currently doing, where you're currently at against your current strategy. I'd also recommend that you undertake, having spoken about stakeholder engagement, that you undertake some stakeholder interviews or maybe even a wider survey or workshops, as I just said. So ask yourself, what are your key themes? Maybe undertake a bit of a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Really understand what's going on in your business and what's coming up in the next few years as well. I'd also then benchmark competitors and clients. This is actually part of our strategy cycle as well, that research phase and developing your strategy. But I would recommend you go back and do this again because, of course, the market changes. So understand what's going on in the market, what's going on with your competitors. And then looking at risk opportunity, looking at materiality or double materiality. So, what are the outside impacts on your business and what are your impacts on the outside world as well? So, thinking outside in and inside out. That's what a double materiality assessment is. So, what you're doing here is you're future proofing essentially. What are your risks and what do you need to adapt as well? I'll come back to talking a little bit more about double materiality because that's something that's been talked about a lot more at the moment. And then thinking about maybe a gap analysis. So, how are you doing against your current strategy? This links in again with number one, but where do you need to be and where are you currently? So, for bigger organizations, they might need to think about your wider corporate strategy here. How does your unit fit in with this? You can also do analyses of how you fit in against a framework, such as UN Sustainable Development Goals, and thinking about, of course, your priorities of your key stakeholders here. You can take that information from part 2 and work out what gap you need to fill. um, where are you not meeting those kind of expectations, or where are you not tapping into that part of the business? And then step 6 here is all about establishing and preparing recommendations. So you can draw together all of your findings and put them into some recommendations. So, how does this align with your business values? Where can you have the biggest impact? Where do you need the most support? And then finally, just thinking about technology, innovation more widely. What are your risks? What do you need? Also thinking about this from a partnerships and collaboration lens as well. You never know who has good ideas. I said earlier about including everyone that's in your business. You never know who might have some really great ideas of how you can do things a little bit differently. Um, and part of this is obviously culture and attracting and retaining talent as well. So these are some key steps that when you get to the point of reviewing your strategy, I would recommend that you go through. And this is here for you. We'll be sending the slides around afterwards. So you can literally start right now. If you know that you're due for review, set up a quick process using these steps, and go for it and just start reviewing. I said that I was going to talk a little bit more about materiality or double materiality, because lots more businesses are doing this now, and it's a really, really effective way of knowing for sure, based on all of your stakeholders, what are the key things that you, or key impacts, material issues that you should be focusing on. And so this is one that we did for a client a couple of years back now. This was part of their, as you can see, their 2023 sustainability report. So we did a full kind of stakeholder engagement process with interviews and surveys. We did workshops. We asked them a series of questions about the sustainability impacts across environmental issues, social issues, and governance as well. And you can see here the most material impacts are health and safety, customer satisfaction, development and training. So the things in the top right hand corner, because they are high importance, both impact materiality and financial materiality as well. And so very, very clearly, this shows you in a really visual way, okay, those are key impacts. That is what we should be focusing on as part of our strategy. And obviously, this is part of the developing phase of developing a strategy. Then you know, great, this is what we should be focusing on as part of our strategy. But also, I would recommend that you refresh this every 5 years. You probably don't need to do it as often as every 1 to 2 years. It's also quite a lengthy, time consuming process. It is worth it. But yeah, I'd recommend maybe doing this every 5 years, and making sure that you're still in alignment with what your stakeholders are saying, and what are the most kind of key sustainability issues for your organization. I've also just put that screenshot at the top right there, showing how I've also done this exercise using something called Mentimeter, where you can kind of quickly ask a group of people, maybe in a workshop setting, about their sustainability impacts. Through environmental, social, governance, and you can kind of quickly mark on the graph where they're at as well. So you can kind of do a quick version of this as well, if you don't have the capacity to be able to really ask, all of your stakeholders and to analyze the data and that sort of thing. Talking a little bit more about governance here, obviously, I just mentioned ESG, and obviously, talking about the three pillars of sustainability. Economic can also be used a little bit interchangeably with governance, as well. So, thinking a little bit more about governance when we're updating and we're continually improving our strategy. As I said, it's so important to have a top down approach. It makes a really big difference when top management are brought into this. Obviously, setting up your strategy in the first place, but also reviewing it and continually improving it. They need to be still part of that process. I'd also recommend having a sustainability governance group. This might be formed by some of the top management or some of your directors, but it also could be wider. So these are the people that are making those business decisions right at the top. You also might have a sustainability working group. So these are the people that are actually leading on this on a bit more of a regular basis. You might have a sustainability uh, team person. If you don't have that, you can still have key people throughout the business that lead on focus groups within your sustainability strategy as well. So I'd really recommend that you have that. And I'd also really recommend that you have employee sustainability groups, as well. They often have the best ideas, they know the business the best kind of on the ground, and they can really feed back what people are saying within their own teams or departments as well. And I'd really think about how you can integrate governance throughout kind of client sustainability networks as well. So, for example, maybe client sessions to understand what they're focusing on, and what they need to be aware of. And then just thinking more generally about how you can get all staff involved. So thinking about, can you integrate some of this into job descriptions, mandatory training? We often liken this to health and safety. Obviously, health and safety is very much business as usual. How can we make sustainability like that as well? So thinking about that golden thread, rather than necessarily reinventing the wheel or creating all of these new things, how can we weave sustainability processes just into the processes that we already have in place? Thinking also about supply chain, about stakeholders, specifically in your supply chain in a bit more detail. Of course, your supply chain is so key to delivering your strategy. You'll need their ideas, their data. You might actually just need, from like a carbon perspective, you might need their EPDs or information about embodied carbon. You need their buy-in and support. So do you need to engage with your suppliers, maybe through ongoing relationship management? Maybe you could do meet the buyer events, for example. I'd also suggest heat mapping your priority suppliers. So identifying your top suppliers, which ones already have knowledge on sustainability that maybe they could share with you, or which ones you need to support them in upskilling on sustainability. Also thinking about a supply chain charter, many organizations will have this, and they'll go hand in hand with your sustainability strategy as well, so that you're asking, suppliers to support you on your journey, um, and making sure that sustainability is embedded into your procurement process as well. Procurement has a real opportunity to influence sustainability, so really ensuring that sustainability is embedded within your PQQs and tender questions and is appropriately weighted, and make sure that your suppliers know that you're serious about sustainability. Um, and best practice, I would say, is really to get your suppliers to report their sustainability performance to you, either on specific projects that you're doing or more widely their full sustainability performance as well. So this helps to assess ongoing supply chain sustainability performance. So moving on now to this performance measurement and management piece. This is so important when it comes to your sustainability strategy, because if you just stop at your lovely document and you don't measure against it, it's kind of what's the point? You need to make sure that you're actually doing it, you're actually implementing your strategy. Otherwise, it is just something that will sit there. Um, Great. Sorry, just going back to my slides and moving on. Just to say as well that we have other webinars, and also lots of content on the Supply Chain Sustainability School on performance measurement and management, some more specific for environmental issues, some for social issues. We have some for SMEs as well. So if you do want more information on this, then you can also go check those resources out as well. Apologies, the light has just gone off in my room, and I don't think you can tell, which is fine. Uh, but it's distracted me a little bit, but I think we're fine. Great. So when we're thinking about the framework, as I said before, sustainability strategy is about outlining your framework and how you will achieve your mission and objectives. So just looking here at the difference between measurement and management, as people often get these confused, but they're different. So measurement is about collecting the data and seeing how you're performing. So for example, KPI. So this might be a certain percentage of employees that are trained in modern slavery, as an example. The performance management comes after that. So it's the do aspect, and it's the way you manage your strategy that you've put in place. So if you've got, 2% of employees trained in modern slavery, you then work out how to improve this. This is the management piece. So it's how you deal with things that go wrong or don't go to plan. And I would say generally, actually, don't worry if things, you might have experience of this. Don't worry if things do go wrong in terms of specific initiatives, because you've got to try things. And a lot of these things, sustainability or working on sustainability strategies, they're still relatively new concepts. We are in a position before in terms of being in a sustainability crisis that we've never been in before. So we don't have a history maybe to look back on and think, oh well, that business did this however many years ago, we can do the same. A lot of us are doing this for the very first time, so it's inevitable that you will just need to try things, and see if they work, and if they don't, then review and try something different. For example, you might put on a modern slavery training session and no one turns up, so maybe you need to think, okay, how can we promote it differently? be? How can we change the session itself? Maybe the session should be shorter so that more people are able to attend. Maybe we could mandate it. So maybe we could communicate the seriousness of doing this sort of training. Um, and then see if that makes a difference. Again, that's just a very simple example, using training as an example, but that's very much the difference there. So we want to measure, and then we want to also make sure that we are managing whatever we measure as well. And even if things are going well, thinking, okay, why are they going well? Why did that work the first time we tried it? Why was there 100% attendance, or whatever it might be? you know can we do a survey afterwards to ask people, what did you like about the training? What made it easy for you to attend, so that you can get really specific information data there, on what did work, so that you can make sure you do the same thing again. And a little bit here on the language of performance management. You might have seen this slide before. I do it in our introductory strategy webinar as well, just because I think it's so important that we're all using the same language here, and we're measuring in the same way, and that making sure that you're consistent internally as well, that when you're saying some of these words, oh, our goal, our target, everyone actually knows what you're talking about. So our goal is our overall aim or desired result. So an example of a goal might be reduce the amount of waste being sent to landfill, resulting in environmental and cost benefits. We'll then have our target, which is specific aim we're trying to achieve. So this would be 90% of waste diverted from landfill. And then we have the indicator, which indicates the progress against our target. And we get our indicator by using metrics. So in this case, it would be, or we'd need the total waste diverted from landfill, and then the total waste generated. And then that will give us the percentage of waste diverted from landfill. So, feel free to use this slide. If you're stuck and you're not sure if you're collecting all of the data or the right kind of data to be able to manage and measure your performance, just break it down like this. I think it makes it a lot easier to understand in terms of where you're collecting data from, and actually in terms of the difference between, because we can use these terms a lot, such as like commitments, targets, goals, but actually just make it really clear what you mean by these things. And also, this can be a really helpful process. You might use this in other areas of your business, but making sure that we get through this cycle in terms of plan, do, check, act, and we don't just stop at the plan and the do, making sure that we are continually improving. So in the act section here, this is where you shouldn't be afraid to try and fail at things, try different initiatives, try doing it in a different way. And this is very much about continuous improvement, because you can't expect to have a best practice strategy immediately. You can't expect that the first strategy you publish is then that's it, that's the best it's going to be. You will need to change things. You inevitably, you'll notice, oh, okay, that target, that goal isn't feasible for whatever reason, because training isn't working out how we hoped. Sorry, I keep using training as an example. And so it might be that you need to adapt that, and you need to change things, and you need to act accordingly. So this cycle can be really helpful. And of course, using data is so important to inform our decisions. Data will let you know what your hotspots are, how you're performing against your targets. Do you need to change a target? Do you need to add more targets? So I'd recommend you do monthly or maybe quarterly, if that's more achievable, progress reports, as well as regular group meetings. And then this should feed into a publication such as an annual sustainability report. I'd really recommend, if you don't have an annual sustainability report, you do, because it's just very helpful to have everything all in one place across all areas of sustainability. And then it's the best way that you can communicate to your stakeholders. You can just send them, and it doesn't have to be long. Often businesses have super long reports, and that's fine, but don't let that put you off creating one, because you think, oh gosh, this is going to be such a huge time investment, I'm going to have to create an 80-page report. You don't actually. It can even just be an overview, where then maybe you can link to a website page or a PDF that has more information, but you can just create something that is an overview of where you're at with regards to sustainability, what you've achieved this year, and where you're hoping to go, and being honest about how you've maybe had to update your strategy as well. Okay, some challenges and common issues. I was actually going to ask this on Menti. I've given you some ideas already quickly on that screen. But if you would quickly just head on over to Menti, if you haven't used it before, the easiest way is just to scan the QR code, or type in menti.com and then type in the code that's on the screen there as well. Give it a little thumbs up when you're on there so that I know. And Michael's uh, put the joining instructions on the chat as well. Great. I can see we've got a question on the chat as well. I'll come back to the questions at the end, but just a reminder at this point, as we've paused, do ask any questions. Please put them on the chat or on the Q&A box. Do my very best to help and answer them. So question, what are the biggest challenges you face when working towards or updating your sustainability strategy? I think this should come up as a word cloud so you don't have too many letters that you can use for this answer, but just quickly, this is anonymous, so there's no right or wrong answer here, but just quickly, what are the challenges that you're facing with updating your sustainability strategy? Here we go. Great. Cost, resources, knowledge, accuracy, information, buy-in, interesting, resources, understanding. I wonder if that's understanding of people internally or if that's maybe that's a mix of both. Yeah, another cost, information, management, buy-in, management. Interesting. We've got a couple of management, budget, yeah, legislation, scarcity, cost, again, lack of legal obligation. And I guess that maybe that can link in with the buy-in, is because a lot of other maybe sustainability issues, I think this is maybe why we get those tunnel visions, especially with regards to carbon, because uh, there's that instant drive because of legislation. So you kind of, especially if you don't have huge resourcing with regards to sustainability, you put all of your energy into that because you know from a legislative point of view, you have to get it done. And then maybe overall sustainability strategy kind of sits on the back burner. So that makes sense. Embedding in the culture, driving culture change, research, interesting. But what I would say, I mean, it's maybe hard to get buy-in for this, but having an overall sustainability strategy will save you time and costs in the long run, because it will mean that you're actually focusing on the things that are important to your stakeholders, and that you've got that level of kind of prioritization and organization and efficiency with regards to what you're doing with sustainability. Otherwise, it can kind of feel like you're just maybe fighting fires or being very reactive rather than being proactive. And obviously, as businesses, we want to be as resilient as we can, especially with regards to sustainability. So, although it feels like costly in the short term, it will reap those rewards in the long term, having your really structured strategy. So yeah, these are things, going back to my slides, some of the things that you've said: time, resources, skills gap and knowledge, funding, lack of leadership, infrastructure, maybe, yeah, strategy overlap. So maybe multi-layer strategies. So it can be a bit complicated, especially if you are part of a business that has a complicated structure. It's like, oh, okay, we've got our group strategy, but what does that mean for maybe different divisions, for example? Yeah, maybe things can be too complex, lack of supply chain engagement. Um, so yeah, there are some real challenges here, but hopefully throughout the session, I've given you some things to think about, some solutions with regards to some of these things as well. And if I was going to summarize some key takeaways, this is what I would say with regards to strategy, just generally make sure you're prioritizing. Lots of you said kind of cost, resource in your challenges there. You can't do everything with regards to strategy. You just can't with regards to sustainability, sorry. It's such a huge topic. If you look at those sustainable development goals, there's so many different things. You can't address all of them. So that's why doing something like double materiality, again, it might seem time consuming in the short term, but it will save you loads of time in the long term because you'll know what you need to prioritize. And obviously, all parts of sustainability are important to an extent, but it's working out what is most important for our business. What are the 3 to 5 things that we're going to be focusing on because our stakeholders have told us this is the most important thing. Develop action plans, make sure that you know what is achievable. You update your action plans, you make it really specific, so who needs to be involved, who is responsible for getting your strategy done and implementing it. Make sure you have your baseline, make sure you're managing, measuring performance, as I've already spoken about, and obviously training education. A lot of you said the skills gap, so do use the Supply Chain Sustainability School, especially those introductory videos, so that people really understand what a strategy is, why you have it, and try and include people as much as possible when you are improving your strategy, when you're updating it. Try and get as many people involved in that process. Obviously, bearing in mind their commitments and how much time they can give. So what have we covered? I'm heading into my last couple of slides now, and then we'll have some time for questions. But we've looked at what a strategy is, why it's important to keep them current and relevant, how you can develop your strategy to be best practice and relevant, how you can deliver against your strategy, and then just generally best practice for continually improving strategies as well. Great. Do we have any questions here? So we've got one, but I don't think all of you can see this. Regarding double materiality, would you recommend that SMEs consider this? I would honestly recommend that every business considers doing it. I think it's a no-brainer for the reasons that I've already said. It means that you have a really, really deep understanding of what's important to your stakeholders, and then instantly your strategy becomes less overwhelming because you can justify why you're prioritizing the things that you are, and then helps you to not feel quite overwhelmed with what obese sustainability is. So yes, I'd recommend just make sure that you obviously tailor the process to what you can do, what's achievable. You might not be able to do a full detailed double materiality assessment, but can you do something that's more of like a workshop where you get key stakeholders in the room, where you do something on Menti as we just did, and where you ask the room different questions around those key impacts. So what do you think is the most important impact with regards to environmental issues to us from a business perspective? Get people to score where they think it is, and then you'll just from doing something like that, maybe a 2-hour workshop, you'll start to have a really good idea of what your priorities should be. So don't be put off by the fact that you think it has to be this really long. Obviously, if you have to do it for legislation, then there are certain things you have to do with regards to your double materiality assessment. But yeah, don't be put off from starting is what I would say. And if you do need any support, then please do reach out. We'd be really happy to help if you need external support with doing a double materiality assessment, then do get in touch. Any other questions at all? I don't think we do. Oh, we have something on the Q&A. Someone said, please can you do a full webinar just on double materiality assessment and how to do it? Great idea. Yes, of course. We have done this in the past, but maybe that's something we can bring up again. So yes is my short answer to that. Keep an eye out. Great. I don't think there are any other burning questions coming in. Hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully that means that everything made sense. But just to say, thank you so much for joining, for taking time out of your day to learn more about how to continually improve your sustainability strategy. I really hope you learned something. Actually, I do have a final mentee. What's your main takeaway from this webinar? Just a quick takeaway. I think often when we join webinars and things, it's good just to summarize at the end for us personally. Okay, what was the main thing we're going to take away from this? Or what's the main action that we're going to go away and do off the back of this webinar? And so feel free to respond to that. Again, it's anonymous, so can be honest. Need to measure how we're doing against our targets, ideas for developing your strategy. Great. Stakeholder mapping to check if things have changed. Great idea. Mapping the KPIs from our strategy. Training of the staff. Yep. Use different methods to engage stakeholders. Yep. A lot of this is about stakeholder engagement, unsurprisingly. You need to do a materiality assessment ASAP. Great ideas for monitoring our strategy, mapping, innovate. Great. Always good to see how there's a real mixture of different takeaways here as well. Um, Share with all staff about the Introduction to Sustainability course. Great idea. Start implementing and doing more. Yeah. I think sometimes we can get so engrossed in the planning stage and the developing stage. Actually, at some point, we just need to get going. Simplify and focus on main objectives. Materiality assessment needs work to improve. Staff needs more knowledge, understanding the way we need to monitor our progress. Great. Some great takeaways here. I'm glad that some things went in and you managed to learn some things from this session, which is great. And I can see that Michael has just put on the chat a link to book in a call with me. As I'd said, if you need any support, I mean, we're doing this with clients on a daily basis. So if you need support with double materiality, with stakeholder engagement, feel free to book in a discovery call with me there through that link. And I'd love to chat to you more about any of this. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I don't think there are any more questions on the chat. Michael's also posted a link to a feedback form. It'd be great to know how you found this session. I think it only takes 2 minutes to fill in. We'll also send that in the follow-up email as well. But I think if there aren't any more questions, then I will leave it there. I'll give you some time back and just say thank you so much for joining and hopefully see you on another one of our sessions soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.